Hey everybody, this is Lisa Riley, and I am the founder of Odo Synergy Services, Women of Color Entrepreneur Network here in Silicon Valley, San Jose, California. We're really excited today. We have a phenomenal speaker, Miss Cathy Gent. And first of all, I want to say happy belated Mother's Day, everybody. That's a mom. Did everybody have a good day yesterday?
Fabulous.
Fabulous,
Wonderful.
Cathy. Wonderful. You guys pigged out.
That
And I want to say happy in sheltering too. I know you guys got your jammies on down there. You just can't show your jammies right now. But anyway, Odo Synergy Services, our nonprofit, got started about a year ago in 2019 to empower African American and women of color entrepreneurs to build their businesses. We generate resources, information. We hold seminars, conferences, webinars, and we bring in phenomenal speakers to educate you on business strategy and information. And so we are so excited. We're putting together a series of forums during this in-sheltering COVID-19 experience. And we're putting together and inviting some phenomenal speakers. And we have the phenomenal Cathy Gent, who is a CEO and founder of the Global Investment Group out of Oakland, California, the San Francisco Bay Area. She's been established in the community, has won many awards. She's a phenomenal entrepreneur in helping people manage their money and investing their money. And she made time for us today. So we're really honored to have her with us today. So Cathy, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Welcome. Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. You know what? Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate this chat with, Odos and friends. I think it's really great. I'm honored to not only be here to share some information, but I'm real passionate about financial literacy, and it doesn't matter if people are savvy or not savvy. There's always something to learn, and I'm always interested in learning as well. There might be some things that I learn as a result of our chat today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we want to pivot in the midst of this pandemic, and people are panicking about their finances and their 401k and getting laid off. And so that's your specialty, to kind of guide people and give them advice on how to manage.
Right. And so, I think what we'll want to do is really kind of focus on that. I'll tell you a little bit about my background first, and then maybe we can talk about today, and why we're having this conversation today, and why you and I thought it would be a really good idea to do so. So I'm very happy to do so and want to do more of it. Tell you a little bit about me. A little bit about Global Investment Company. I started Global quite a while ago. It's been 37 years, guys, a long time. And I'm still here, just totally blessed to have great clients. And so in doing that, when I first started as a financial professional back then, I actually started in insurance, life and health insurance, okay? And then from there, I became a licensed stockbroker and started doing some financial planning, became a financial planner. And then a number of years later, became a registered investment advisor back in 1992, and re-registered again as a registered investment advisor in 2016 as a result of all the changes that's going on in the industry. And we can speak to that a lot more. But what we do today is we manage money as financial consultants and business consultants, primarily in investment management and fiduciary consulting. Now you might say, well, what the heck is a fiduciary, right? Because most people ask me that question. And basically, just in simple terms, a fiduciary is someone who's responsible for another person's or other entities' assets or money. So you could be on the board of directors, you could be a trustee. Now financial advisors are considered fiduciaries. Bankers and so forth, depending on the level, are considered fiduciaries. And a lot of people don't realize that. Many people sit on their nonprofit boards and not realize that they are fiduciaries, especially as grants come in and so forth. So, I try to educate fiduciaries on their responsibility as a part of what we do. as global as well in terms of our education. But today, why we are here and having this discussion, I know that Lisa and I have had some discussion about, what's next, right? Now what? As a matter of fact, is a new kind of, I don't know if you'd call it a series. It's just something that I started live on Facebook a few weeks ago. Now what? Which is really the question, right? I mean, we've been in this pandemic now. It started in January, probably started in October. We probably have had it and not really known that we've had it. And so here we are 3 months later, and you ask people how long you've been locked up, and people will say, a few weeks, and it's really been 3 months, and and time flies. And what are we doing during time? That's what I'm talking about. What are we doing now, right? So the time is to pivot. And so we talk about being a fiduciary, but what we're doing today is discussing finances during the pandemic. That's kind of what we're talking about today. And what we need to do is we need to stay optimistic. And it's very difficult to do that when we're depressed and we're grieving and we're unemployed, or, cash flow is tight. But what we have to realize, and I don't believe most of us even realize, is that we are really in the midst of the greatest transfer of wealth that we will probably ever see in our history. And it's interesting, before the pandemic, what people don't know is that we're looking at an estimated up to maybe $68 trillion will be moved between the baby boomers and their children within the next 25 years. That's a lot of money. Now, if you add on top of the pandemic, can you hear me now? Are you okay? Keep going. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right,
okay.
So
Go ahead.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, so what happened, so during this pandemic, now the 68 million or the 68 trillion that I've quoted, which came from CNBC, there are others that will go maybe to 56, but we're talking $60 trillion, 60 to 68 trillion. That's a lot of zeros, guys. And our children and our children's children, and even some that are younger and that will be benefiting from that. So what are we teaching our children and their children about money? What are we teaching them about legacy planning? What are we teaching them during this time of pandemic that helps them pivot along with your pivot, right? Now, not only do we have this greatest transfer of wealth that's happening that most don't even are even aware of to be prepared for, but we have this pandemic, and they just threw another 6 trillion, maybe even another 10 trillion that's out. Now, I've not gotten any, I think I got nationwide. They gave me, it's true,
I got nothing.
I got a return of premium, and I'm not excited about that. I even in my, I think I said in my Now What segment, I used the example of how excited I was about getting the couple of $100 that I did get back from Nationwide. I don't know if you've ever seen that IKEA commercial where the lady has all those bags and she's running to the car like somebody's chasing her, and she's telling the husband, start the car, because she thinks the company's going to come after her. That's kind of how I felt. I felt like, okay, I better get this money and do something with it. So part of what we have to do with this great transfer of wealth is not only look at our families, but we look at what's happening during this pandemic and how we can take advantage of it. When I got my little Nationwide check, I didn't just go out and spend it on food. Some of it I bless someone else with that, whether it's tithing, or whether it's giving it to my kids, or whether it's buying somebody something who needs something. And then there's paying myself first, right? After that, now I'm saving a little bit of money, and then what's left, I bought some food or something that's on my list that I needed. So if we start to think about how we spend our money during the pandemic, and how we start to invest, even if we've not invested, but how we will start after today to invest is really, really huge. So staying optimistic, knowing that we're in the midst of the greatest transfer of wealth and how you're going to deal with it, despite the fact that there's decreased unemployment, there's a decrease in savings and investment, and possibly in real estate values. And yes, there's limited cash flow. Everybody's feeling the same thing. I won't say everybody, but the masses of us are feeling the same thing. It's just a matter of how you manage through that. And I've given 3 ways to look at it.
Okay.
I call them the 3 R's. Reallocate, reevaluate, reallocate, and regroup. Okay? Reevaluate. Now, I have many, many people that are not my clients. This is very important to know. That are really anxious about the market and selling and wanting to sell because they're down, you know. I remember someone had told me one was looking at their 401k and now it's a 401k. I'm sorry, a 101k, you know, because it's lost a lot of value.
Right.
The reality is that, you know, if we know about the cycles of the markets, and we also understand that this pandemic has probably dropped the market 25% or more, and it's maybe short-lived, then you're not really wanting to jump out of the market. If anything, you want to reallocate what you have in and out of important sectors that are making money and not making money. For example, why would you be in the cruise lines right now?
Yeah.
Why would you be in hotels, right? I mean, these are somewhat obvious things, unless you're a really, really long-term investor from the standpoint thinking, okay, in another 3 to 4 years, that's going to come back. My point, though, is in 3 to 4 years, you could reallocate out of that and buy something that is doing well, Zoom. And I'm not suggesting that you go out and buy it. I think I've done some disclosures and they've been listed ahead of time in terms of advice. I suggest that if you're interested in getting that advice one-on-one with me or getting more information from another professional. But think about it. We're using Zoom right now, right? There's Netflix. These are companies that are all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but are having more and more impact with individuals who are at home. You know, Amazon, many people can't afford Amazon at $2,500, $2,300 a share. But, you know, at one point, Amazon was 100, right?
Or PayPal, or a lot of the payment
Or
links.
Square. I mean, we could go on and on and on the list. It's a matter of what is it that you want to do. So now you are reevaluating. You're reevaluating your retirement plans, whether they're your IRA or your deferred compensation 451 plan, you know, income from Social Security. If you have annuities, some people don't even know what they are. If you don't have anything, if you have absolutely nothing, this is even a better time to begin because you're getting some undervalued assets, whether it's certain companies or certain real estate. First-time home buyer, come on. If it's been over 3 years since you've owned property, you're a first-time home buyer. So why not consider 3 to 5% on down payment on a home? Even if it means that you're in with a sibling or a relative. I've got quite a few people taking advantage of that right now. We're at the lowest in some of the interest rates. So reevaluating and then reallocating. Now, why is that important? Let's say that you do have a employer plan and it's your, you know, you have a 401k, or maybe you're a teacher or work for a hospital or a nonprofit and you have something called a 403b or a tax sheltered annuity. Either way, those are retirement plans, and usually your employer going to have some investment choices for you. And if you've not looked at those, this is the time to do it, because many of those investments may be down quite a bit. For example, if you're in energy, the energy sector, the bottoms fall out of the energy sector. What was $38 a barrel is negative now, all within a matter of a month. So if you're holding Duke Energy and all these other, you know, ConocoPhillips and, you know, Valero and, you know, PG&E, you really need to take a look and reevaluate what you have, whether you want to hold on to them or not. And if you don't, you want to, you know, move into things that are probably going to do better in the long run. And the other things, when I talk about the cycle of the market, I mean, you know, I say to people, you know, the reason I say they're not probably my clients that are calling and saying get out of the market, They've been well trained. They understand that there are cycles of the market that happens during the course of a quarter, during the course of the year. So if you know that there are 9 to 10 events that are going to happen during the course of the year, then you're probably not going to do anything. If you know there are 4 quarters in the year, for example, we know there are 4 quarters in a year. At the end of every quarter, people like me, money managers, financial advisors, we're trying to capture our gains for the next quarter for reporting. And we're also trying to get paid, because that's how we get paid. We get paid a percentage of the assets we have under management. So if we sell at the end of the quarter, we can get paid. So know that at the end of the quarter, you're probably going, or 2 weeks before the quarter and maybe a week after, you're going to have a period of a down market. So regardless of what's going on, you kind of know. You're like, oh, you're checking your watch. Oh, it's the end of the quarter. You tend to know that October is the worst month of the year. December is the best month of the year, and on and on and on. Holidays are good times for retail. So this is the kind of literacy that we need to share with each other moving forward, so that as you're starting to reallocate and regroup, which is the next part, then you're in the right direction. The regroup part, let me tell you about that. That's really getting to know who you are, okay? I mean, getting to know what's your hot button. One of the reasons why I believe that most of the people that I work with enjoy their investments is because they've selected them. They know their hot button is they don't want to be in defense. They don't want to be in alcohol. They don't want to be in whatever it might be. Or maybe they want a woman-owned firm, or they want a black manager, whatever it might be. They know who's managing their money. They know what's in their portfolio. And therefore, when we have situations like we have now, like a pandemic, if there's a call, and I'm probably initiating the call to the client, say, hey, you guys are all right? Sit, don't move. Here's why you don't move, right? And then and what was wonderful, I only had one client actually get out of the market, but she was concerned because her son graduates this year and he's on his way to college. And she was just really concerned. So we moved her out of the market, but everyone else pretty much kind of stuck in, and we started buying on the dips. Buying on the dips, guys. Warren Buffett, you ever heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
He's very successful is when everybody else in the world is panicking and selling, he's buying. And that's what I'm doing. So when my clients see the market dropping, they're not on my phone saying, Cathy, what is the heck going on? Get me out of here. They're saying, Cathy, do you think I should be buying some more Apple? You think now's the time to buy Tesla? What do you think? We were talking about Starbucks. What do you think? Those are the kinds of conversations I'm having with people, because they get it. They know that if you can buy Apple that started at 21 many years ago and has split 10 times since then, it's now trading, before the market dropped at almost 300 and it went down to 100, why wouldn't you buy that if you could afford it? Right? I mean, if you know Square, which is now trading at, over $70 a share, went down to 48 or went down to 38 and may go back up $40, why wouldn't you buy Square? You know the product. So that's something else. When you regroup, you're regrouping to buy assets, whether it's real estate, stocks, or bonds that you're familiar with. You watch Netflix, that's probably a good one for you.
Too much.
Okay? If you go to Costco and you're getting your percentage, maybe Costco's for you. You go to McDonald's, maybe McDonald's is for you. How do I teach kids? What do you want to own? I want to own Goofy. Well, Goofy, you can't own Goofy, but you can own Walt Disney, who's the company that produces Goofy. So you start with what you want to own, what you understand. That's the other reason people aren't blowing up my phone. They're invested in what they buy. They're invested in what they know. So if you're a wood maker, you're owning Craftsman. And you might have owned Sears before they went out of business, because Sears owned a lot of Craftsman. You
Right.
get it?
Yeah.
Or they might own Caterpillar. We just sold a lot of Caterpillar because it's down. But Before Caterpillar, remember, we had all the storms and the tornadoes and the tsunamis. What makes sense? Getting into something that can help rebuild countries.
Right.
So when you start thinking about regrouping, think about what you want to own. Think about how much money, even if it's $500. Now you might say, well, Cathy, come on, it's only $500. Well, we've got to start somewhere. And I'm mentioning it because it's tax time and it's stimulus time. If you get $1,200 and you take $500, you can buy, let's see, you can buy 8 shares of Square, for example, if you like Square. Okay, I think PayPal's trading at 100 and something. There's some new companies that have come aboard. There are mutual funds. So there's all of these different investments. So those are our 3 R's. And I'm going to be wrapping up here in a minute because I want to get some questions. So you've got reevaluating, reallocating, and regrouping. And the regrouping is really understanding what you want to invest in. The other part is retirement. Okay. Now, I just mentioned to you that we're looking at a $68 trillion transfer of wealth to people that are much younger than we are. On the other hand, they should be thinking about their retirement as well. Just as we're thinking about our retirement. Where is your money? Where is it? Do you know where your money is? Do you know we're going to be living longer than we've ever lived before? Guess what? I was just telling my husband this today because I spoke with one of them today. I have a 92-year-old client. My oldest client is 98. Okay? I've got 4 clients over the age of 90. And they're just fine. Just fine. So my point is, you don't know how long you're going to be living. And let me tell you, each one of those people, they got it going on up here. Let me make a move in their account. Cathy, what's up? What was that? All right. I'm serious. But I've taught them well because they read their stuff. That's the other thing. You got to read your stuff. I don't care. Emails come to you, read them. You don't know where they are. Unless you don't know where they're coming from, don't click on them, right? You're the tech guy. You know that, Michael. I learned that, right? But otherwise, you get something from your brokerage firm or your advisor, hey, read it. All right. I've got investments right now that I placed 7 years ago. Clients this week are receiving. Again, I'm going to the pandemic, taking advantage of opportunities. I've got clients receiving letters from real estate investment trusts. They're called REITs. These are real estate investments that people would have put their money in quite a while ago. But guess what? Because of the pandemic, people aren't paying rent. So REITs are upside down, very much like energy. So the federal government is bailing out. And what does that mean? They're providing liquidity into the REIT market so people like you and me and my clients can get out. So they're getting letters from these real estate investment REITs saying, do you want us to buy your shares? And my clients are sending me the letters. I'm like, yes, please sell them. I'm not telling you to sell them. Remember, I'm not providing you advice. You want to know that, we can do one-on-one or you get some other advice. The reality is that they may not get another dime if they don't take that offer, because we don't know if those REITs are going to make it or not. Okay. So if you have some of those, you want to take a look at it. Last thing, credit. It's something else you want to look at. You may be aware already that because of the pandemic, we all get 3 free credit reports this I think between now and June. So you want to go to www.annualcreditreport.com. So that'll give you Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Okay. And Credit Karma will give you your credit scores, and you'll be able to dispute. And that's really important. Now, why is credit really important right now, guys? Interest rates are their lowest in a long, long time. So
hold on one second. Hold on, Cathy. I need you guys to mute your phones, please. Mute your phone. Thank you. Sorry, Cathy. Go ahead.
That's okay. That's quite all right. All right. So yeah. So this is the time on the credit cards. So if you've got credit cards, now's the time to call the credit card companies and get your interest rates lowered. And if for some reason they're not willing to work with you, let them know, hey, you know what? I'm shopping around. I know they've lowered my interest rates. So you guys should be passing that on to me. And if you don't want to do that, I'm looking around. And you tell them this. I'm looking around and I'm going to transfer my balance. So I had a client just do this today. And she had been getting stuff in the mail from Discover. Discover is one of the best ones, by the way. And there are others, of course. I believe in cards that give you cash back and points and the whole bit, because you can use that. That's just as good as money in some cases. So anyway, what did she do? She says, you know, well, I've been getting Discover in the mail and some of the others. I'm paying 18.99% on this current credit card. I'm like, you know what? Give them a call. Tell them that you want them to lower your rate. If they don't lower your rate, that you're going to go transfer it. They would not lower her rate. So she ended up calling Discover first. Then I said, then call someone else. She calls Discover. Discover gives her 12%, 15 months without having to, 14 months to pay off the balance. She's paying principal only. Before, she was paying interest only. So not only did she cut her payment schedule in half, she is able to reduced her payment as well. And she shifted that whole amount. So say $45 a month, save her timing and paying that credit card, cut it in half. And the credit card that she left behind starting June 1 was going to start to have to pay interest. So for a year, the money she transferred, she had for free. That's smart.
Wow.
That's smart. So when we can start to regroup like that and think about credit that way, and knowing that they work for us, we don't work for them. And this is what I tell people, whether you call Comcast, the insurance company, to reduce your insurance premium, or whether you're calling credit card companies, you're letting them know that, wait a minute, you guys, I'm your customer. And I've been your customer a long time. As a matter of fact, I've been your customer, what does that say, 1999? You guys haven't given me any kind of break. Nothing. Can't you give me something? You know what my mother told me a long, long time ago? A closed mouth doesn't get fed. Right?
But Cathy, we need to do our research though and be prepared to move on when the companies do not want to give us any discounts.
Well, and that's what she did. And that's what she did. She moved on. And ended up going with Discover, but she had the option to go to Wells Fargo and some of the others. But that was after she had done her research on who's going to give the most. For example, I think Wells Fargo gives her 5% back. So that's why she liked Wells Fargo. I think it was 5%, something like that. Well, that's a ton of money. You know, if you're charging $10,000 a year, that's still $500, right? You can do something with $500. People don't think $500 is a lot of money, but $500 is a lot of money. You go to a developing country, you're rich. I've got some people living. You think I'm kidding? I've got some people, okay, in the country, and they don't have more than $30,000, but don't think they're not considered one of the richest Americans out in that country. They're like, they think I'm a rich American.
It's true. It's true.
It's so true. So it's all about it's relative, right, to each one of us. And then I'm going to end with wellness, because financial wellness is part of financial literacy, guys. Okay? Wellness is huge. Staying optimistic right now during this pandemic is really helping. Now, how do you do that? You're like, okay, Cathy, I'm tied up in the house. I ain't no money. They ain't blah, 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 right? All of that, true. Well, we got to reduce stress. So exercising is important. Yoga, meditation, those things are very important. Eating the right things. It may not necessarily be Pepsi. It might be something else, because diet is, and I ain't picking on nobody. I'm just saying, diet is really important, right? Because that helps us sleep. And that helps us stay functioning, productive, right? And then there are hobbies. Now, this is where we start to really make our money. Because people say, well, how do you really pivot in a time when, you know, I'm not working? you know, and I'm at home. Well, this is when you start to look at your hobbies. What do you love to do, right? Do you fish? Do you garden? The arts, music, write, sing, poetry, find your passion, right? My granddaughters, they like makeup. All right. Well, one is selling mink eyelashes now, and the other one is doing makeup artistry. I mean, you know, whatever works for you. Dog sitting, dog watching. You know what? We're going back to where we were when we were growing up. Now, come on. We were cutting grass and we were doing all those things, but we were children and we didn't think of it any other way except that, you know, oh, I'm gonna go do something and make some money. Now that we're adults, we put all of these barriers in our way. What are people going to think if we do this? Oh, I don't have enough money to do that. Oh, I don't have enough time to do. And the reality is we find time for what we want. The last part of your wellness should be legacy planning. If you've created any kind of anything, you want to pass that on to people that you want to have it. So if you don't have a will and you don't have a trust, this is the time to do it. I have to tell you, accountants who are busy right now, accountants, people like me, and estate planning attorneys, people are scared out of their wit. They're scared. They're like, okay, what if I die tomorrow? I mean, I wasn't supposed to, people aren't supposed to be dying right now. Okay, so what we've been putting off and putting off and putting off till tomorrow, you need to be doing that today. You need to do it. And if you're not quite sure how, take an inventory. We got smartphones. Go around your house and go like this. You know, go in your storage. Go, you know, speaking to the phone. Okay, my dad gave me that in 1989, you know, and record it. Who do you want to take care of you in the event that you're in a pandemic and you're sitting there in the hospital for 30 days in a coma? That's what medical directives are for. That's part of your trust. Same with your finances. While you're there laying for a month, who's paying your bills? Who's doing that? If you have children, guess what? Families are dying today, all at once, leaving their children. Who's going to be guardian? I'm sorry, but you tuned in today because we're talking about reality. We're talking about a pandemic. We're talking about regrouping, right? And this is all part of that. So I'm going to stop because I think right now this is maybe a good time to maybe answer some questions, maybe clarify some things.
Yeah, you have some questions, but also we want to show everybody surviving financially in a rigged
Oh, there's my book. Look at me.
society. So you got your book up there. So I meant to tell you I have it over here.
Okay.
Cathy is the author of Surviving Financially in a Rigged System, and I'm going to put the book in the comment section, and then you can tell everybody where they can find it. Or actually, all your information is in the chat, so they can get in contact with you.
Too, I have a new website that I started for the book, and it's called System Survivors. So www.systemsurvivors.com. The idea is that we all are a part of a rigged system, and some of the systems that are rigged, we create ourselves. And so if we can survive through it, I mean, heck, I've been in business for 37 years through rigged systems. Some I've created myself and some I haven't, you know, just because I'm a Black woman in business or in investments or whatever. And some because of where I live or grew up or whatever. So there's all of that. But at the end of the day, we get through it. And how do we get through it is having facts and being able to communicate like we're communicating, right? Thank you for that, Lee. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the book. I've scanned through it. I should have had it read by now, so forgive me. But,
that's a no worry. No worry.
And it's in.
Okay. Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Now I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, so we have.
Okay, now I can't hear you. I can't hear you at all. I don't know what happened. Just stopped.
In the
There
framework.
you're back.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. So one question is, can you explain and elaborate on transfer of wealth, the players, the framework, what that looks like?
Yeah, when I'm looking at the transfer of wealth, basically we're talking about, when I quoted, for example, the 68 trillion, that's based on 45 million households in the United States. So if we were to look at those households and we see that the youngest of the baby boomers, 55. So when we look at 55 through the age, I want to say 67, like that. I'm not exactly sure of the in age right now. But we look at the baby boomer population. We know we're looking at starting at 55 to older. Our generation, we're not going to be around that long, some of us. So many of us have created wealth. Whether we own a home, and if you own a home in California, that's wealth. That's it right there. I mean, if you know, just owning something in California, even if it's a lot, okay? And then if you have life insurance, well, guess what? Most of us in our generation have some type of life insurance because we were told we should. Or we learned from varying, you know, this person or that person that, you know, or all the GoFundMe pages, we don't want to go through it. So, you know, even with my clients, I mean, heck, I mean, we're not looking at life insurance like people used to look at life insurance, you know, years ago. You get a phone call or something in the mail, you know, want to buy $50,000 worth of life insurance, Gerber term, or 100,000 here and there. We buy it. That's not how we do it. The way we do it now is, what do you want paid off? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you.
Okay, great. So, you know, now the question is, what do we want paid off when we die? If you own a mortgage, you want it paid off. If you want income for your spouse or your children, you got to include that. So if your mortgage is $400,000 and you've got kids and it's going to cost them $100,000 a year to go to school, or 200,000, you got to add that on there. So that's 600,000. Then if you have a spouse and you want them to have income for 10 years at $2,000 a month, there's another $240,000 added on top of that, and you might have some bills. So you might wonder why people have $1 million worth of insurance. It's not because they want everybody to be rich, folks. Most of it is because they don't want their family or their heirs to lose what they have been able to gain. Now, when you start to think like that, you're going to pass on your legacy in a way where you decide who it goes to and how it goes to them. And that's why a will and a trust is important. And that's the transfer of wealth that you should be thinking about. The pandemic transfer of wealth is about what's available as a result of the pandemic. If we get it, if we get it. Even if we don't get it, take advantage of some of the undervalued companies or undervalued investments that are in your retirement plans.
So Cathy, we have some more questions, but on to your point, and Helen just brought up another point as well, that family members are really, really ill and they need coverage. But
exactly.
I'm seeing in the last, roughly 10 years approximately, more wealth building programs, services popping up all over the country for African Americans, but we're still behind the 8 ball because a lot of us, especially I'm a baby boomer, right? And so a lot of us weren't conditioned to buy insurance. We didn't trust it, we didn't understand it, and invest in it. And so how do we change? I mean, we still have a long way to go. There's predictions that by 2050, the average African American is not going to have any savings. You know, we're hearing that out here in the universe. And so how do we, change that mindset? Why isn't there, let's take the San Francisco Bay Area. I've seen several wealth building financial programs. We should be having conferences here, pulling together all of these resources so we can better educate our communities. We're so decentralized.
Right. It's kind of always been that way.
Can you hear
Yeah,
me now?
I can hear you. I think what you said is that, you know, we're kind of all decentralized.
So how do we
right?
change that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do we change that? Because now we have a big issue here, a cause, and we got to deal with the post-pandemic and the whole financial situation of people being out of jobs. How do we come together collectively to try and educate and change that mindset?
Well, a part of it is doing what you're doing right now. The other part of it is doing what I'm doing as well, being on here and writing books and trying to get information out. The other part of it, though, is, you know, it's like anything else, Lisa. You can, you know, you can teach a person, or you can take them to the water, right? And you can teach them how to swim, even you can teach them how to fish. But if they don't want to, there's not a heck of a lot you can do about it. Okay? Now, what does that mean? What that means is that we all, regardless of black or white, we have to be ready. We have to be in a ready mode. What I've noticed with the people that I work with, before they actually do anything, they're in a ready mode. They mean, you know what that means? That means they're tired. They're tired of it. Okay.
Are you ready for your next question?
Yes.
Oh, how do you feel about real estate investing with crowded, funded platforms like Fundrise? Is it?
Okay, I just lost you. I think I heard. I think I heard you say. Okay, yeah, I can't hear you, but I think what I heard. I think what I heard you say is, what do I think about real estate investment platforms like the crowdfunding sourcing type of platforms?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'll just tell you in general how I feel about real estate. I believe real estate is one of the best investments you're ever going to hold, period. Now, it depends on the type of real estate. And we just had a conversation about REITs and it being real estate investment trust, which are a pool of investments, a pool of real estate in one investment. And so when they sell it, they got to sell the whole thing, right? Unlike having individual real estate, where you could sell individual or leverage individual pieces. To me, that's different. So to me, I think that's a real good market. As a matter of fact, one of the other companies, and you know this, that I started last year in February is called Ozzy Company. It's an opportunity zone investment company. The focus of Ozzy is to do just a little bit more of what we've been doing with Global Investment Company, but do it directly, where we're focusing on investment in low income and distressed areas throughout the country. And these are areas, obviously, that we know whether it's Baby Hunters Point or whether it's Watts or whether it's parts of Detroit, we know what those areas look like and who's there. So, you know, being able to invest in places like that and own something and change it, that's what I'm about in terms of real estate. Not just, you know, you want to get to a point, I think everybody wants to get to a point where we're the lender and not necessarily the borrower all the time.
Absolutely.
And so if that's part of your goal, then that's how your life's going to be. And that's what we plan for. But that's got to be a goal. If it's not a goal, you're never going to get there. So what are your goals when you say, well, how do we make this happen from being decentralized to centralized? If we all have common goals like we are right now, and we say, you know what, let's start our own fund.
I love that. And we have a couple of realtors in the group. Lisa's on the line, and she's with
Hi.
And she's coming up with some of these good real estate questions. And we were having a discussion about, in the future, looking at collaborating, pulling together a group of women to teach them how to invest and pool their funds. And so this is a great topic. This would be another subject that we would want to talk about. And it works
well. It really works well. You know, one of my very first clients was an investment club. So we're going back now to 19. But anyway, that investment club was a group of women, all Black women. And there were, at the time, there were about maybe 15 or 16 of them. I'm going to say maybe 4 of them are still my clients today. 36 years later. Some came back to me and so forth. But each one of those women learned as a result of being part of the investment club. So they'd pick stocks, they'd research the stocks, they'd buy and they'd sell. They'd have people like me come in and give talks. They had goals back then. I want $1 million when I retire. So they got $1 million when they retired. That was their goal. So these ladies got $1 million and they're ready to retire. So here they are in a pandemic. One or two's retiring within the next month or so. Others have just retired maybe this year and last year, and they're worried about their portfolio, but not that much because they planned. So we've got to do that. And it's not too late. You know, you could be a baby boomer and don't have it together like that, but you got to start somewhere.
Lisa, did that answer your question?
Did I get to it?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, I can't
hear you. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear.
She must be driving.
Okay.
Anybody have any other questions? I had a couple of questions about investing in Africa. We understand that Africa is going to be the next Mecca. And I belong to the African Diaspora Network. And so here in Silicon Valley, I'll tell you more about that later. But we want to look at, you know, are there any movements, any Black organizations pooling resources and looking at investments in Africa and South Africa and Ghana? Do you have any information about that?
That's really interesting, you know, and I'll send you some more information. But but to answer your question, the answer is yes. It just depends on what you're looking for. And here's something you should know: if you don't know this information about South Africa and even apartheid, how it actually fell from a financial perspective, there's a mutual fund company, and we trade them now, called Calvert, C-A-L-V-E-R-T. Calvert Mutual Fund Company really have been around a long time. They're actually, in my opinion, one of the very first socially responsible mutual fund companies in existence. And they actually produced the very first Black man to manage a fund. His name is John Rogers, and he runs the Ariel Funds. So you guys may be familiar with John Rogers. He came out of Calvert. Well, Calvert was a part of the main movement in building a fund to fund the movement against apartheid in South Africa. So we can find, and so folks that were investing in one of their particular funds was actually funding to help that happen. So there are funds out there that are focused on that. There are even things called investments called ETFs, which is a whole nother story, right? I simply describe them by saying, if you're familiar with the mutual fund, it's like a basket of mutual funds. So they're even more diversified, okay? But you can invest in individual countries by buying those. So like iShares and Power Shares, these are companies that provide investments in companies. So in countries. So South Africa for many years has been a great producer in terms of earnings for a long, long time. So it's not new to make money owning shares of companies that are in South Africa or in Africa. So developing countries, something you should know about. There is a new fund I'll tell you about that, especially since you're interested in Africa and some of the others. It's actually run by a woman here in the Bay Area. Her name is Amy. Yeah, and Dominique is a white woman, but she's kind of the head of her time. Dominique, she started a couple of funds a number of years ago. She has her international fund and her bond fund, but she has a new fund that people are not aware of yet that just started April 1st. It's called, the symbol is CARES, C-A-R-E-X as in X-ray. And it's the Dominique Sustainable Fund. What she's doing, and I think the minimum investment is either $1,000 or something like that, but what she's doing is she's using something called the Sustainable Development Goals. They're SDGs. There's 17 of them. And she's basing all of her investments on those goals, and she's investing in developing countries as well. So Yeah, so it's an incredible fun. I've been throwing a lot of people in it since she's it started at $10 a share. Now it's like 12 something in the last couple of weeks. Now it's not to say it's going to always do that, but my point is it's cheap. We talk about getting in something that's cheap. So even if you put $1,000 in there, that's pretty good. You know, if you had been in there, put that $1,000 in there 2 weeks ago, you'd already be ahead because it's now up $2 a share. For some of you who are looking online, you know, it's Domini, D-O-M-I-N-I, Domini Funds, and Amy Domini is the owner of the funds. And yeah.
When you come back, we can bring Amy in to talk about her program.
Oh, you know, Amy's a huge money manager. I mean, she manages. It's probably billions. Okay, so probably not. As a matter of fact, managers don't even like talking to people like me, and those that do, I'm very happy about. But I'm sure, you know, that's a goal. I mean, why not, right? Why not have a goal where we get someone like Amy to talk to us?
It doesn't hurt to ask.
No, it doesn't hurt to ask, especially if our goal is to really try to deal with sustainable investing and investing in developing countries, and maybe she can give us some feedback. She is a woman, and she believes in small countries and small companies, and so, you know, all she could do is say no.
Yeah, I love this. It's almost 7.
Yes.
Are there any other questions from the group? Anybody? You can get off mute. We got Gail from Las Vegas. We got, who else we got on here? A couple of people dropped off. If you have any burning questions of Cathy right now, Lisa, did we cover all your questions?
Yes, I believe. I just have a transfer of wealth. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Okay, I'm sorry.
I keep hearing that.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't hear your question. What was the question? Lisa, can you repeat the question? Can you repeat the question? Oh, okay. Okay.
What you said.
Okay. Okay. Elaborate on the transfer of wealth as it relates to the pandemic. Okay. All right. Transfer of wealth as it relates to the pandemic. As what I'm talking about, there's a couple of things. One is money that you're actually going to get as a result of the pandemic. So assuming we get it, right? Your stimulus of $1,200. If you've got kids, I know I'm shaking my head too because I didn't get it, but you know, other people, you still may get it, right? The other part is really taking advantage of the markets. As this money, for example, I use the example of how the feds are buying up bonds and real estate and other types of investments. If you're in that environment or want to get in that environment and you know that they're buying things up, why not take advantage of that environment, right? Why not go and buy something that you know is pretty much covered and backed by the federal government? So that's another way, you know. And then the other way is really, why not do more of an entrepreneurial spirit? Here's a time to start creating ideas that you can capitalize on. You know, while you're sitting and you have idle time, whether it's a technology app, whether it's what Lisa's doing right now, there, you know, whatever it might be something that you can cook. I don't know, but this is a great time to take advantage of that with the pandemic. You know, even in terms of when I look at what I do and some of my clients, let's take the funeral industry, or we take not the restaurant industry, but there's certain industries that are really doing well. Why not identify those? I know we were speaking earlier, Michael, a little bit even in terms about technology. Identifying a space in which you work that you could capitalize on and try to sell that ware to somebody.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have, but I'm mentioning in terms of, Lisa, a way to take advantage of that wealth transfer.
Absolutely.
You know, and just opening your mouth to folks who have some money, who are saying that they're willing to help people out in this pandemic. Call them up and say, really, you know, well, here's how you can help me, or here's how I can help you. I mean, people can only say no right now.
Right. So you hit on something, and as we wrap up, you talked about, you know, healthy. We need to be financially healthy and have a healthy, wealthy mindset. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, Odos is dealing with things holistically from an entrepreneurial perspective. And so we're focusing on financial, mental, physical, emotional, because as an entrepreneur, as we try and grow and build our businesses and make a contribution into society and the world, we have to have that holistic approach. And so we're also going to be hosting a alternative health, What'd you say?
Otherwise,
go crazy. Yeah. We're going to host something at the end of the month, the 25th or the 30th, dealing with alternative health care, mental health, emotional health, and to, again, empower our community, especially now in the midst of this pandemic.
No, I think that's a great idea. As a matter of fact, I will give a shout out to a similar session that I'll be doing with Barbara. And our topic is financial wellness and personal pivoting.
Okay.
So that's going to be, so she's going to talk a little bit about wellness, and I'll make sure you get that information. So for those of you who are interested in participating.
That's Barbara Lee.
Yeah, no, not Barbara Lee. This is actually, her name is Barbara Howard. She has BH Brilliant. It's a nonprofit. And we work with women in reentry, coming into reentry, and you know, lots of women around business and so forth. So we do these things. Mm-hmm.
I thank you so much for taking the time out to come hang out with Odos, and we look forward to seeing more of you in the near future. We have some plans that we're throwing together for the network. And so Cathy was also our speaker at our Women of Color conference in East Palo Alto back in March. Phenomenal. And so we look forward to having you in the future. Cathy, any other closing remarks before we let everybody go?
I would say to everyone, make sure you take a look at those 3 R's. So that you're, you know, doing your thing, you're reevaluating, you're reallocating, and you're regrouping, and meet with a financial counselor, either from your work or on your own, so that you have some help with this, because it's not easy stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to call you because I'm messing around with my 401k right now. I know we had a little brief conversation about that a couple of months ago, but you know, a lot of people are going through changes right now and out of work and dealing with some challenges, and so we got to manage things right. Thank you so much, my love. Cathy's information is in the chat, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, everybody. Shoot me an email. Give me some feedback, and I will talk to everybody later. Thanks,
Awesome.
Gail. See?
Bye-bye.
Bye. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Mr. Mike.
All right, perfect.
Thanks, Bridget, for showing up. Thanks, Lisa. I'll talk to you tomorrow.